Nissans, they're so fancy, your magnetic lights don't stick to them. Got a 2007 Nissan Altima here, and the complaint on this vehicle is there's a thud or a thumping noise coming from the engine compartment. So let's check it out, see what we got. Alright, here's a shot at the engine compartment. Whenever I hear a complaint of a thud noise or a bumping noise or something like that, I always suspect that maybe the engine is moving too much. Or also if the customer complains that, you know, there's a lot of vibration in the steering wheel or something, especially when they're idling. That's the first thing I'm going to look at. There's 4 mounts on this vehicle. You got 2 over here, 1 down below in the rear, and 1 under this air box over here. The most common failure one, we'll look over here, is going to be this one right here. And yeah, you can see it's, I don't know if you can see it with no light, but it's clearly broken right there. I can put my finger through it. And when this one goes out, it allows the engine to torque too much, and it moves back and forth. And I believe, yeah, look at right there. We can see, you can see that mark right there. You can see that this mount has been moving back and forth a lot, probably way more than it was designed to. Let's fire the car up and see if we can't see some movement. Well, I don't know how well you could see it, but it definitely looked like we had excessive movement in the engine. And with that mount broken, I'm going to definitely recommend we replace that one. And I'm going to tell them it's probably a good idea to replace this one too. So we'll see what the owner wants to do. With a little bit of light on it, there's a better shot. You can see how much it's been rubbing right there. And if you can see in there, you can clearly see this thing is broken completely all the way around. It's not even doing anything anymore. Alright, the owner gave the green light. We'll go ahead and replace both those mounts. So we'll go ahead and get the parts and pop those out and get this thing fixed. Alright, first thing we'll do, we'll get this cover off. You're going to need a 5mm hex. Hex head. Allen, whatever you want to call it. We're just going to take these 3 bolts out. Just like that. That's all it takes. And then this should just be on grommets. Should be able to, wasn't even. There's usually a grommet that it snaps into. Yeah, right there. Just pop it off. And in order to check this left-hand engine mount, all you gotta do is pull the air box off. Just these 2 clips right here. Pop the air box filter off. And you can see, there's the mount right there. You can see the top of the nut right there. And in looking at it, I don't see any damage to that. I think that mount is just fine. And the last engine mount is the rear engine mount, and it's down below in the middle, and you got to get the car in the air, and usually it's easier to take the wheels off to check it out. Alright, from under the vehicle, if you want to find this rear motor mount, here's the oil pan right here. Here's the drain plug for the oil. Right behind that, this is where the other motor mount is, or engine mount. You can see this one's still intact. It's right there. The rubber's still intact. It's a little cracked and deteriorated, so it's showing its age. It could stand to be replaced. It's not an emergency like the other ones, but I think in the near future this thing should be replaced, so that's what I'm going to recommend to the owner. Now, because I'm going to take off this main support bracket that holds the engine in place and holds it up, we need to go down below and we need to support the engine with a jack and a piece of wood. Otherwise this engine is going to fall down. So we're going to go ahead and do that. If I was only replacing this one, I could probably get away with not putting a jack under there. But because we're doing this one, we got to put a jack under there and hold this engine in place. Alright, from the front of the car here, we're going to go right underneath. Right up under here. Not an easy shot. And there's your oil pan right there. We're going to go ahead and put a block of wood, a 2x4, right on that oil pan. If I can do it and film it at the same time, I'll show you. So you can see there's the oil pan. We're just going to take a block of wood. We're going to put it right there, right in the middle of that oil pan. You see, I don't have too long of a block of wood. We're just going to put it right there. I don't want it touching the subframe over here, and I don't want it touching the catalytic converter over here. I only want it on the oil pan itself, right here. That way we're not doing any damage and we're just supporting the engine. What you don't want to do is have the jack on there just by itself, because it can crush your oil pan. And then I don't want this piece of wood only touching one area. That way, because it could damage it if you're just pressing on one area. We want to spread the weight as evenly as possible across this whole thing. And we're not going to put too much pressure on it. I'm just going to put the jack up there and just touch it and just put a slight amount of pressure just so the engine doesn't drop. Now later on, when I'm trying to adjust those mounting bolts to get them in there, I might have to put a little more pressure on that, but I'm only going to apply the least amount as necessary. Alright, I'm just going to bring the jack right up to the oil pan. And that's it, just a little bit of pressure on it, now it won't move. Alright, I'm just going to zip this 18mm nut off. Maybe not. Alright, gotta get the big boy out for this one. Like butter. Alright, now using a 16mm socket, I'll pull these 4 fasteners off. If I notice that the engine starts to shift or move a little bit, I'll put a little more pressure on the jack. You see it shifted, we'll just put a little pressure on the jack. Just bring it up a little bit where it's supposed to be. I try to take it out with the and leave the bolts intact, because you can see they're different lengths, but they're not that big a deal. 2 short ones and 2 long ones. You can see I was manipulating this. This thing got turned some. You can see by that arrow right there. It needs to be facing the front of the vehicle. Alright, while I'm thinking of it, we're just going to take this 10mm fastener out, move this coolant reservoir out of the way, or be ready to move it out of the way. You can see, now we can put it wherever we want. Now for this power steering reservoir, just going to take my screwdriver, just put it right in there and pull that out a little bit so I can pop this out, get it out of our way, or at least make it loose so it'll be out of our way. There. Now we can manipulate it and move it around. Now, in order to get this mount out, we got to take that fastener out, that one, and then that one down in there, right there. And this mount is in the way. So before we mess with this lower piece, we're going to get this bolt out and this one. That way we can get this mount out of the way, then we'll get to that one. Alright, we'll see if we can't knock this off with the 3/8 inch. I'm just using a 18mm socket with a swivel. Nope, she don't like it. Alright, I'm going to have to use the big boy again. Woo, she was tight. You can see how much it moved once we pulled that out. That was definitely holding a lot of the weight of the engine. Whoop! You can see the mount was completely destroyed in two pieces. It wasn't doing anything but rattling around in there. Alright, now for this fastener here, you can see we don't have a lot of clearance. So we're going to have to use some kind of wrench to get that. There's a couple options we can use. And also, Nissan, in its infinite wisdom, didn't leave a cutout here or a hole so that we could get the bolt out. So we're going to have to take these two 13mm, I believe they're 13s. We'll take these two fasteners out. We'll have to gently lift this up just a little bit in order to get this bolt out of there. Alright, to get this 18mm fastener out, it's probably going to be tight just like the other ones. We can use a really long wrench like this one. The problem is a lot of times you're hitting stuff in the way, so that can be difficult. I can use the flex end, but there's a good chance I'll break that with as tight as these engine mount bolts are. You can use, an 18mm wrench like this. These offset wrenches usually get you up high enough where you can get out of the way. Now because they're so tight, you're going to need some more torque. So you can take an 18 and then loop a 17 on it like that, and that should give you, enough. But you can see that thing's on there tight. What I'm going to use is this really short socket right here like this. Put it on there, and I can take my wrench, my 17mm wrench, and I can put it on there, and you can see I can work it like that. You can see how tight that is. And the reason I use this, because it's 6-point, so I don't want to round the fastener off, especially when I'm putting that much force on there. And then, once I get it loose, then I can ratchet it. You just can't go too far because you'll put yourself in a corner. But these little things are nice because you can put a 17mm wrench on there and use it like that. Use it like a really short socket. And now that we got it loose, now we can Helps to have a ratcheting wrench like this. Just don't go too high, you catch yourself in there. Otherwise, you got to use the open end. That takes all day. You can see how Nissan makes it so it will not come out. But now the bolt's loose, we just need to pry this up a little bit and get it out. Helps if you have a little pry bar. I suppose you could use a screwdriver too. Just go in there a little bit and get it out. That's all you got to do. And there's your mount. Alright, we'll just go pop these 3 bolts off. We're not even going to mess around, we're just going to use the big boy this time. Now you can do all these with hand tools, but you'll probably need a breaker bar because these are going to be tight. There, all 3 are loose. These bolts are all 16mm heads, by the way. So you can see these 2 are the same size, and then this little one goes in the front. Now the fun part of manipulating it out of there. We're just going to have to wiggle and finagle and kind of move these a little bit to help us get it out of there. So you can see, just be gentle and get it out. And you can see, I keep the bolts organized with the old parts like that, so that way I know where they go. I don't get them all mixed up. Alright, we got the new engine mount here. As you can see, there's the part number C9809. And there it is. We'll have to put that stud in there, but that's no big deal. That'll tighten up. We'll put it right there. We'll make sure our little rubber piece is pointing the right way, which it looks like it is, and we'll get this thing installed. Always compare your new parts to the old ones. And I don't know if you can see, but you can see the height right here and the height right here. This is smashed way down. If you look in there, if you look closely, you can see the damage in there. So it's a good thing we're replacing it now. Alright, we'll see if we can't drop this back in here without doing too much damage. And just like that, we'll get our 3 bolts in. Alright, as you can see by the blue, these bolts had some Loctite on there. So we're just going to take some blue Loctite, put a little bit on these bolts. Get them all started by hand so we don't cross thread anything. It's easy to want to use power tools to get these started. Not a good idea. You cross thread these and it sucks. We'll just tack them down. We'll get them snugged up. Now, according to Nissan, these are 30 foot-pounds, so we'll torque them to 30. Alright, now for the other mount. That's what it looks like when it's not broken. With the flat piece up, we'll just set this back into place like that. And we'll put our bolts in, and we'll put Loctite on those too. Alright, now that we got this bolt in, started by hand, making sure the washer's on there, we'll get the other one right in there. Put a little Loctite on it also. And we'll always make sure we get these things started by hand. You don't want to cross thread motor mounts. That ends in a bad day. As you can see, we can't get a torque wrench in there. So you just do your best, get it nice and snug. And both of these, I believe they're 63 foot-pounds. Alright, we'll just tack this one down. Alright, both of these bolts are 63 foot-pounds. I don't think, we might be able to, nah, we can't get it in there. This one we can get to though. On the money. Alright, so this one over here, we just want to make sure, yeah, that feels good. It feels about the same as the one I just did. Click, 63. Alright, now we'll see if we can't set this back in place. And you see, these do not have Loctite on them, so we're not going to put Loctite on them. Looks like these are the two long bolts. These are the two short bolts. Right here. They look the same length. Yeah, I believe they are. Yep. And we'll put our center bolt right there too. Come on. Go ahead and tack these down. So this center bolt right here, 76 foot-pounds. So we'll go ahead and get that one torqued. These top four bolts are all going to be 37 foot-pounds. Alright, I lowered the jack down so there's no weight on the jack anymore. The weight of the engine is back on the mounts. We'll just double check these real quick. Good to go. Alright, before we forget, we'll put our two 13mm bolts back in here. Nice and snug. Alright, we'll go ahead and pop our power steering reservoir back in. Make sure it clips in place. Alright, we'll take our coolant reservoir, set her back into place. It just, if you didn't know, there's a little slot right here that it sits on. Slide it down the bracket and we'll put our bolt back in. Once you get that reservoir back in place, good idea. Make sure you didn't lose any coolant. Make sure it's where it should be. Go ahead and put our cover back in place. Just get them snugged up. Here are the part numbers for both of those engine mounts in case any of you are interested. There's one of them, and there's the other one. And both of them came from O'Reilly Auto Parts. And if you want to know what Nissan calls these engine mounts, this one over here is the right hand engine mounting insulator. This one back here is the right hand engine mount torque rod. This one under the airbox over here is the left hand engine mounting insulator. And the one down below is the rear engine mount torque rod. So that's what Nissan calls these things in case you need that information. Well, there you go. That's how I diagnose and replace the engine mounts on these Nissan Altimas. And as always, if the video helped you out or you liked it, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Thanks for watching.